Thank you, Dominic. Weirdly, it is a little bit short. I'm super short, so usually I'm like having to pull it up. So, thank you. Hello, everybody. I love Carmarthen, but I've not performed in this space, so thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me, Dominic. I'm going to change up my order a little bit, because as I was driving down, I was like, holy shit, it's still sunny and it's 7 o'clock. Woohoo! Spring is here. So I wrote this little poem for spring called Returning. Instead, let those grey winter worries be healed by broom and deru. No lonely wanderings here. Only erwine-scented memories and daffodowndilly adventures beneath a stippled sky. Returning swallows whisper as they soar, we have missed you, Alban Eilir. So, thank you for including about the lady parts. People forget about that. But there might be a season 2. Okay. So my second poem is called Tea. And for the poets in the room, I don't know what your sort of process is like. But when I'm like interested in a topic, I go on this like rabbit hole. And then I have to sort of stop myself, because I'm like, okay, that's you know far too much about this now. But yeah, so I wrote this piece about tea. And recently it was performed. It was an actress from RADA got in contact, and she said, I want to do like a performance to the piece and read it. And I was like, oh, great, And she took it really dark, and I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about this interpretation of my little poem. So I'm going to read it how I like to read it. The cup is the first step. A delicate teacup suggests high teas, decorated by lace napkins and pale-gloved fingers that reach for neatly cut sandwiches while the talk slices up an empire. A mug of cha to calm the nerves in a crisis is a matches halftime helping that synchronizes switches across countries. But are the builders enjoying their brew aware of that painful past contained in its dried leaves? A politely hidden history that traded tea for the poppy, or that once in Boston, pouring tea into water stood for discarding colonial control. A sorrow infused over time, seeping bitterness into boiled water. Although, when mixed with mint, jasmine, star anise, or cinnamon, the taste of history is steeped in the present. A place we all try to infuse with the taste of us. Meticulous ceremonies that celebrate friendship, gentle as life, strong as love, bitter as death. Chai is poured from on high, spilling along the Silk Road to Tesco's. Merging bitter matcha with sweet chai, soaking into Barabrith raisins overnight. Cultures and languages permeate life, weaving through our flow of experience, iridescent in the chaos. Thank you. So this next one, it is a little bit dark. I find it fascinating how when you're in your car and an ambulance comes, and how 99.9% of the population understands and is willing to know what to do, which is get the fuck out of the way, Okay. Oh, that scream, that heavy keening, all hearts dread, a desperate wail of wires and blue lights, warding against the death that creeps ahead. Lips move, sending promises, prayers, or regret to a remembered, forgotten God. Heavy metal jaws clamp shut on patients patiently waiting to be saved, gratefully entombed in their metal haven. Blue pleading screeches punch the air, a flurry of fatigued focus green, then the ambulance is gone. Curtains twitch, people text each other. There was an ambulance on the street. Hearing the frantic fanfare, all traffic parts. Hearing the frantic fanfare, all traffic parts. There's something about ambulances commanding a mechanical Red Sea. But a sports car, it's always a sports car, interrupts the frenzied procession. What a wanker, the waiting drivers mutter. So this next one is in the form of a ghazal, which originated, Arabs say in Arabia and Persians say in Persia. We'll let them fight that out. And it's basically a love letter to Iraq, which is part of my heritage, a place that I've never been to. My sister, the lucky cow, is just coming back from there, but I've just never had the chance to go. Kisses drift to Iraq, dandelion seeds I spread for you. Seeds for I want love blooming everywhere they tore you. I say one day, feeling the lie in my feet soaked in dreams, so jealous of the gifted bottles of sand when I crave more you. But this land here is sung as the paradise of poets, so I swallow enough mother tongue to safely store you. Borders mean nothing to birds murmurating in the sky, a different dance of survival, a remembering for you. Buried under dusty bodies, weeping oil, Iraq, you remember burning books for warmth. Oh, how they love to war you. I sit in Wales and think how our hands will never touch Iraq. So in every rivulet, every crease of myself, I pour you and make up dreams of our meeting. Hanan, flying over the Dijla River, I wake tasting your winds and roar you. Thank you. Commissions are like weird creatures, aren't they? Like you'll get asked, can you write a poem about a hedgehog or a dinosaur or something? I've been asked to write about a Brazilian porcupine. It's one of my favourite poems. It's rubbish and terrible, but it's the gift that keeps on giving because every now and then I get a nice little check in the post for it. So Arts Council commissioned me to write a piece for a conference, and I couldn't stop thinking about, Arts Council and these corporations and organisations that always expect you to fill out form after form after form after form. And the equal opportunities form always cracks me up because I'm always, it's like changes every time I fill it in, like the mixed other, please specify, and all that bit. So anyway, I wrote this poem, ABCDs of Equal Opportunities. Oh no, I should also say, whilst I wrote this, I was really interested in quantum theory. I read Benjamin, if you're interested in this kind of thing, Benjamin Labatut's When We Cease to Understand is like this incredible book. So, yeah. Are you familiar with quantum entanglement? Burdened with the belief you don't belong because you choke on Arabic when a white friend loses a loved one. Display yourself for this monitoring form that allows us to consider how many people bathed in chocolate dust when that lint factory malfunctioned in 2020. Cocoa-coated cars and chimneys across town. Dreams do come true, someone said once. Are you familiar with quantum entanglement? Braided together, the split elements in a ceaseless, long-distance relationship defy Einstein. Imagine all it took was tiny tardigrades to prove him wrong. And we know that entwined, separated entities, boundaried by time and space, can somehow feel what the other does. Like when the protesters in Iraq took out their phones and told the military, "We are recording you. Beware, Allah is watching." I felt that. Or catching school kids' laughter at the traffic lights. I don't know how to warn them of what's coming. About the cold and the anger. All so cold, watching bloated, sallow, milky mouths swallow more and more Cymru. And byth will they snatch Welsh waters while distracting us, switching conversations to swathes of refugees, washing ashore like Hokusai sea foam, hearts as broken as bodies lacking life jackets, clinging to sodden memories. The damp sets in when they face their first aggressive questioning at the doctors or the bank. They would buy bread home, but they would buy bread back home if they could. Why not offer them a second home? Not something that destroys this local landscape, but a space they can care for and inshallah breathe in. Sometimes saying Syria sounds like cofiwch. Can you taste chocolate dust on your tongue yet? Diolch am roi eich amser I ateb y cwestiynau hyn. This is just like a soft filler poem because I feel like that was intense, and the one I want to read next is intense. And also I put it in because I was it's called Grange Gardens. It's a park in Grangetown in Cardiff, and we go there to play football, and I bloody hurt my knee playing football there yesterday. Like, is it like a sign that you're getting old when you get knee issues? Yeah, because I just turned 37 and I'm like, that's it, like, my knee's gone. Okay. Eh? Oh, no. Grange Gardens. I'm forgetting things. I know it was near the swings that he grazed his knee, and on this bench you told me the truth. But it's a messy jungle, the park. Memories bloom all over as if I dug the soil myself, burying moments I hoped would take root. Trudging through mulched up picnics, drooping winter walks. I can't keep them alive forever. Overwatered memories die too. Old rotting, forgotten beneath the new. The way he climbs at 10, the way he runs at 3. So this next piece, Literature Wales invited me to write as a response to some of the concerns about the cost of living, cost of energy crisis. Need I say more? When the hearth heat of summer leaves, the cold creeps in, all unwelcome kisses. So get the blankets, get the cardies, start turning up the dial. No, that's too much. Light a candle, not a lamp, my love. Savour the taste of tomatoes and salty chips, even the hum of hairdryers. For when the heaters shiver alive and that sallow golden amber dilates pupils swollen with pound signs, this tired world fevers watching its people freeze. Ah, Cwrw, gather the neighbours around El Mish'al. Come, we've saved you a space near Aylward. Sing us songs of little saucepans and hope that we never find when you see me cry, scratched into a wall somewhere. So this next piece I was asked to write by Wales Coastal Path. And it was a project collaboration with my predecessor, the great Ifor ap Glyn, who was the previous National Poet of Wales. And they asked you to kind of take a stretch of the coastal path that meant something to you. And so I live in Cardiff, so initially I said the barrage, but then I was like, oh, actually, my favourite part is a bit further up, more towards Newport. It's like the sea wall. And they were like, great, because nobody even knows that's there. So I was like, oh, fantastic. But what I found poignant is finding my way into the poem during the pandemic, we lost my father-in-law. And I could see how constricted my husband felt, having to grieve just stuck in his house. And so these sort of walks literally were healing moments, you know. So it's called Every Step. After the funeral, I take my husband to the barrage. There's a storm coming, he says, still wrapped in sorrow. Grief, grey rocks sit like gritted teeth, holding back the sea. No, my love. I point up at the ashy waves. Stratocumulus clouds just have a heavy look. Pretty siesta and marshmallow line the path of our procession to Peterston Wentlog. The salt marsh wind welcomes, stroking my husband's hair. It pulls him forwards, eager to play. He lets the moment draw him on. He spots a rock, and amongst the swirls of green and blue, he sees the world and smiles. A small smile, but there it is. Clouds remain our companion as we trail along the coast. The mudflats are all gums, wide stretches chewed off the seawall. We walk, not speaking. Every step, a soothing word. How long left have I got? How long? One more? Yeah, okay, cool. Okay, I won't do that one because it's a bit intense to finish on. Okay, I'm going to do Lands of Mine, which was inspired by the land of my fathers. I mentioned quite a few different places in Iraq. I mentioned Arabic words, Welsh words, but what I'm not going to do is translate them because, like Dominic, you will all go and buy my book, and in the back there's a handy glossary of what those words mean to me. But yeah. Hen wlad fy nhadau occupies my thoughts. Blazing rage and bullets, piercing dreams of Baghdad. Alaskari is gone. I roll up paper, twist out the middle, then crumple it to resemble the damaged Malwiya, even the spot where a lovesick girl jumped to join the deaths of Mongol hordes and wise men lying forgotten in the dust. Baba, you promised we would eat at the rotating restaurant, but someone like my son, yet nothing like my son, finds comfort in thinking he was following orders. As houses collapse, palm trees extend heavenwards, afraid to look at the painful detritus below that lights a blinding hiraeth inside me for him lad v'mamai, the home I have loved halfly. I think of my great-grandfather who breathed in coal dust as he breathed out kindness, Mishtaqeen, gentle George. From the dark wooden drawers of my nan's Welsh dresser emerge stories of loyal dogs and fickle flower princesses. Cenio McCain, I am a woman of neither here nor there, though it is here I have bled and brought forth my child of more than 2 places. I gift him with the names of extraordinary princes and the stories of my people, of Fallujah, of Aberfan, of Baghdad, of Cardiff. Thank you.
Thanks, Dominic. Yeah, my agent, he's an awful bastard anyway. I wouldn't blame you for not speaking to him. Sorry, I shouldn't be saying that. No, he's lovely. It's good to be back in Wales. I was only here a few days ago, so I was in Cardiff and Swansea and all sorts of places. Just left on the 30th, and I'm back again, in a few weeks. So, one thing so I'm from Dublin, but I moved to Wexford, where I met Dominic, and I realised as the crow flies, Wales is nearer to my home in Wexford than it is my home in Dublin. And that's just been an interesting kind of mindset shift for me to realise that this whole other country that's near, and it's been great to come over and engage. So yeah, I'll say some poems. I'll try to. This first one is not my best one. Maybe you won't like any of them, but that's okay. So it's called "We Must Create." It's basically it's kind of written in like there's 10 syllables per line. If you care about that sort of thing, okay. If you don't worry about it. And it's just, I think it's a nice opener, encouraging you. Okay. You're all very nice, smiley people, aren't you? Anyway, here we go, right. Yeah, exactly. I'll make you cry in a moment. I promise you that. That's my superpower. So anyway, we must create to know who we can be. I say this for you, I say this for me. We must create to know who we can be. Early beginnings, heartbeat, warmth anew, first breath, eyes open, a new point of view, hands touch, ears hear, clocks ticking, I am who. We must create to know who we can be. Here in truth and onomatopoeia, boom, boom, belch, zooms up, while playing with grandpa, while cookie cooking bacon for grandma. We must create to know who we can be. There are creative accountants, CVs, Tinder profiles where you look the bee's knees, but best not to force it, it comes with ease. We must create to know who we can be. We heard a song sung, it helped ease the pain. We didn't feel so lonesome as we sang the refrain. We forgot that feeling until we heard it again. We must create to know who we can be. Do you remember the time you heard an opening allegro, or when that beat dropped and how it made your head go? Some things make no sense unless you're in flow. There was 2 extra syllables there, but I forgave myself. It's okay. We must create to know who we can be. You may rise then fall, or fall then rise. An arc of a story contains no surprise, but how you tell it, therein the art lies. We must create to know who we can be. If you do it for the money, you'll be called a fraud. If you think you're great company and you might be God, delusions of grandeur aren't that odd. We must create to know who we can be. You may rise then fall, or fall then rise. An arc of a story contains no surprise, but how you tell it, therein the art lies. We must create to know who we can be. There's all sorts of forms, disciplines, levels. To challenge yourself in the intervals, we'll find rivals and reasons for approvals. We must create to know who we can be. If it saved you from yourself, and now there's no other way, it doesn't matter how it moved you. Welcome to the ballet. You've just found the peak of Parnassus. Fair play. We must create to know who we can be. I say this for you. I say this for me. We must create to know who we can be. Thank you. I'll do a poem. Lovely to hear Hanan reading there, and it's made me think of doing slightly different things, which is nice to kind of, I didn't exactly know what I was going to do anyway, but I'm going to do a slightly different one in a moment as a result of that. But I'd like to share a poem with you called Saintly Sister. Hopefully I remember it. I'm pretty sure I do. But if I don't, it's okay. I'll just say a different poem. So don't worry about it. Saintly Sister. I wrote this after a difficult conversation I had with my dad. My dad was quite unwell, unfortunately, which prompted us to have chats that we mightn't have had otherwise. And I wanted to write about it. And then what happened was, it was St. Bridget's Day. And I realised St. Bridget was the key to unlock the poem. So St. Bridget's Day was the 1st of February. And it's now actually a national holiday in Ireland as well. Like, we obviously have St. Patrick's Day, and now St. Bridget's Day is another day off for us, which is great. So it goes like this. Oh, to have another pair of eyes for a different perspective and ways of seeing this world. What colour would yours be? Mine, a greeny blue, a hue not lost on you. Teenage trauma led to a black eye and an eventual cataract, blurring my vision and depth of field. Ironic. Poets are meant to be prophetic, but I didn't see that punch coming, nor did I expect to be knocked by the answer to my question. Would you like grandchildren? I asked my father. I'd have liked a daughter, he said. And with that, a loss I never knew existed, my unknown skin and blister, a sister, a figment of imagination, a regret, an unborn sibling, one to rival with, be the apple of his eye no matter how hard I try. So I write this for you, sister, on this saintly day. So I'll call you Bridget, Mary of the Gales, goddess of poetry, yarner of tales, singer of spring, druidess of oak, holy fire smoke, teach me of brotherhood, sorority, take anything you want from me. I don't remember how we first met, because it never happened, but did you hide my bike, help me with homework, push me off the tree? Was I overbearing with my love, protecting you from your partner? Did I do unspeakable deeds when you told me what they'd done? Or was I overjoyed at being the godfather to your first son, making me an uncle? Would I make you an aunt? Who was told first, or were we both there when cancer was uttered? Did we take it in turns going to the hospital? Or are you younger or older, I, the pupil or the master? I'd selfishly rather die first than read at your funeral. Are you pagan in tradition, shining in bulk colours, white and silver for snow and ice, pale gold for the passing winter sun, jade green for the first flowers of spring, garnet red for the lambs to be born, amethyst for protection and the birthstone of February? With the sun's growing strength, you brightened each day, and here you found me, halfway between the solstice and equinox. I am a straw boy to your cross, and I sense your healing at this time of rebirth. You've been born, revealing my blind ignorance. Sister, now I find all we have is the imagination to play happy families in the mind. One thing's for sure, though, I know you'd be kind. So I was chatting with the barman there, who's busy flicking through Tinder at the moment. How are you getting on? This poem was for you. Did you get any swipe rights there, did you? How are you getting on it? This is page 35. I don't even know if this is a poem. It's just something I wrote. It's something that happened, and it's called Changa, which is Irish for tongue. And I'm aware that there's obviously people, the Welsh language is prevalent here, which is great. And I was in Cardigan last year, and it was prevalent all throughout that festival. And I'm, in terms of the barman, like we were talking, he was saying he's done his Duolingo and I was asking if he speaks Welsh, and I've completed Duolingo in the Irish app, but you just kind of get good at Duolingo. Unfortunately, I'm not speaking it enough. But this, I'm really lucky that I get to travel a good bit, and as I said, I've been around Cardiff and Swansea, whatever, with poetry, which is great. And I love going to Kerry. My favourite festival is Listowel Writers' Week. It's where I go to listen to my elders. It's like going back to Mecca. Like, I go to Glastonbury to take loads of MDMA and dance underneath a fire-breathing spider, and then I go down to Listowel to just, you know, it's a different wholesome sort of thing. And there's so many people descend upon the town that there's not enough B&Bs and hotels for everybody, so people open up their homes. So I stayed with this family for a few years in a row, and got to know them a bit, which was lovely. And their young child, Brian, one day, do you know what Milshawn is? Osquailga, you probably don't, because it means sweets. Okay, so one day, Mary would cook me a big fry-up, and I love a fry-up. The fry-up and the fairy coming over today was absolutely brutal. I have a picture on my phone to prove it. Anyway, but they cooked me a lovely fry-up, and Mary would freak out that she can't fry an egg very well. I'm like, I'm not that fussy. I'm fucking eat whatever egg you give me. But she'd get her husband, Billy, to fry the egg. And the thing I love about this is Billy was also a guard, a policeman, and he'd wear his full policeman's uniform and fry me an egg every morning, which are just, you know, only in Kerry sort of magic moment. And one day around the breakfast table, this little moment happened, and I just thought it was really beautiful. So I wrote a small thing about it. And there's a little fancy quote at the start. You might have heard of Brian Friel. He's an incredible playwright, and if he's got a play called Translations, and it says, where there is ambiguity, let it be Anglicanized, because like the language in Ireland, the place names have been devoid of all meaning. So if you think of Clonmel, you might have been to Clonmel in Tipperary. Clonmel means fucking nothing. Okay, it means fucking nothing. But Clonmilla means meadow of sweetness, you know. Or Glenageary would be Valley of Sheep. You know, it's just devoid of all meaning. I hate that. Anyway, but we're communicating in this language, which is a great thing. Anyway, so this is called Changa or tongue. Brian is 6 years old and from Listowel. Brian is loved by his parents, Mary and Billy, and his sister Ava. Brian is into Angry Birds and Star Wars. Brian is wearing his Kerry GAA PJs, as proud of his county as his family are of him. Brian has to go to a special school in Tralee, Mary told me. Brian has a speech impediment. Brian has trouble saying sweets. The S and W haven't found his tongue yet, unlike sugar. Brian uses the word milshon instead of sweets to get what he wants. Brian has reminded me of another Brian and his translations. Brian can be provided with all the words, but he chooses to say what he wants, how he wants. Brian's Changa is not tongue-tied. Brian is 6 years old and from Listowel. And I just loved, you know, how you have a 6-year-old speaking bilingually, and I just liked that moment. So that's all. Thanks. So one more. Yeah. How one more. Well, this could be a long one. We'll see. Well, I'll do this one and we'll see. I might have a short one, Grant. But this is just listen to Hanan there, and the one about the seawall and healing and your husband's grieving and hopefully I'm saying that right. Is reminding me a little bit of this poem. I wasn't going to do it, but hey, that's the way these things work out. Page 60, and it's also based in Kerry, so it's a nice little segue from Listowel to Kilreelig, which is past. Like it's the next stop is the Skellig Islands. So if you're Star Wars fans, and it was May the 4th yesterday, you're watching The Mandalorian. It's very good. Not such a Star Wars. Mandalorian's very good. I'm enjoying that with my wife. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. What page is this on? I have it memorised, but just in case. 60. Yeah, thanks. You got me book, have you? I brought my own books, which you can buy afterwards, and I have this memorised, but just in case. And it's called Imram, which is an Irish word as well, which would mean voyage. It's been translated into Irish also. But anyway, here we go. A man goes to the coast of an island to be alone. He has gone as far as he can for now. It's called retreat. A great distance is not always far enough when the mind is as restless as the ocean you're sleeping beside. This man is seeking solitude, and in so doing has brought the loneliness into his own heart. Sure, he knew this would be the way of it, but he still put one foot in front of the other. You have to face it sometimes. Learn. The barren landscape is worse. He reminds himself of the continued struggle and erosion that is life. He thinks that's a cliched metaphor. A famine village is deserving of more. He looks out at the ocean all too often, the primal part in him wanting to rage in the deep blue. Yesterday was Valentine's Day, and around the table he was told of a tragic love story of a man who, after he buried his love, climbed to the top of Bola's Head and threw himself to the depths. After this story, the man made the same trek. It'd be so easy to climb the rock walls and pass by the sheep in the fields and dive, never submitting. But knowing it's a fight never to be won once submerged, there's something honest in that he thinks is there. Never submitting. Those rocks are patient hunters. How much violence have they caused by simple stillness? Then birdsong called through the air. Like so many times it's called him away from a dark edge. Like so many times it's the simple things in his life that save him. Fond memories, curiosity. He could have sworn he saw the Fibonacci sequence in a spiderweb earlier. This reminded him. Instead he'll walk on into the wind which numbed his face yesterday while a warm heart pounds on beneath all the layers. He can go so far, and it's never enough. You can learn to be still and it'll come to you. You can think of moving rocks, battling nature, or arranging words in some fashion, aiming for legacy. This is redundant. You know this. Leave your ego at this pagan peninsula. Echoes of trauma are just that. Time for silence. You are here. The man notices the bruise in his knee is fading. The salted air is already healing. Later, heated eggs night a fire. Later, good things will come to pass. He reminds himself of this right now as he sits still, warming his feet, ready to wander. Gone? Oh, yeah, cool. Sorry. The international symbols and no. Okay, cool. I'll do one not by me. Thanks very much for listening. Thanks again, Dominic, for the invitation. It's my first time here in Carmarthen. So it is. So it was had lovely Italian down there. What's that? Very good. It was actually a big portion, so I took a bit of a doggy bag home in my hotel, so I'll probably have that later on. So if I've been off, you'd speak to me later on of a garlicky breath, blame them. I love garlic bread and tagliatelle. Lovely. Anyway, we're on the west of Ireland there in Kerry, so we'll go up a little bit further to Sligo and we'll go to Yeats. And Yeats wrote this poem, Lake Isle of Innisfree, about Sligo, and Sligo is known as Yeats County. However, he actually wrote this poem in London. He was walking down Fleet Street. Sorry? What? The Strand, apparently. All right, was he? I don't know. I believe it was Fleet Street, but I'm open to correction. And he just saw like an ad in Little Babbling Brook, and it took him back to. It's funny where the inspiration can strike, from an ad. But he wrote this, and if you watch him on YouTube or listen to him on YouTube saying this, he's like, "I will arise and go now and go." Nice bit of reverb there and all that. But it's not actually his speaking voice. He kind of believes poetry exists in this other realm, and it should be so. But anyway, whatever, you can get at it later on if you want. But yeah, so I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree, and a small cabin built there of clay and wattles made. 9 bean rows will I have there, a hive for the honey bee, and live alone in the bee-loud glade. And I shall have some peace there, for peace comes dropping slow, dropping from the vales in the morning to where the cricket sings their midnights all a glimmer, and noon a purple glow, an evening full of the linnet's wings. I will arise and go now, for always night and day I hear lake water lapping with low sounds by the shore while I stand on the roadway or on the pavements grey. I hear it in the deep heart's core. Cool. See you later. Thank you.
I too have stories, but I kind of feel that there's this strong energy of conversation on the connection with the sea, the connection with grief, with some level of pain that we sometimes carry in silence. So I just want to get it over with and start with that. And this is from a book called Would You Like to Come Home? And then we'll get to know each other. So, eloquent interpretation. Forgetfulness is a compass to safety. Still winter air, a brilliantly clear, if not cold, day. Or was it summer? The war between reality splits the planet in half. Right down the middle divides one thing from the other, one memory from the next. Each piece so full of love and heartache, long coats and awkward silences, a long row of questions no one dares to answer. One by one, they pass in front of our eyes like pieces from a glacier, sharp and crackling under the light. Are you okay? How are you doing? Are we far from home? Do you know your way back? The shallow water came in with the tide and began to cover the corners of those moments when we most feared we would lose ourselves. But we kept going. We kept going until the seagulls resembled insects and disappeared. We kept going while the clouds came sporadically to life and drew marine species in the sky, which then devoured one another and disintegrated. We kept going until we knew not if it was water or ground below our feet. It felt at times like we were going straight down, like we were falling. Forgetfulness is a compass to safety. A dreamlike state when the sharp arrow of grief begins to sting less and feel more like the outer shell of a cocoon. The narrative into an extraordinary, unequaled new form of existence. We forgot if it was you or us. We forgot if it was you or us who got left behind at the shore. Dominic already did the good introduction, but I have to say that I kind of feel like a deja vu because I've been here before, just virtually. Finally, it's like I get to put my name on the wall for real this time, and I'm really grateful for the invitation and for getting the chance to see old friends and new friends and to honor poetry in a day where other less relevant things are being honored or weakened, no? So I'm gonna share with you in this round the lottery, La Lotería, Nocturnal Sweepstakes, is a book of poetry that I wrote last winter. It tells you my story in a different way. I pretended it was fictional somehow while I was writing it so that it could come out finally. But I am a poet since I was a child, and I was born in Colombia in the middle of a war. So being a poet and suddenly becoming a famous child poet very quickly turned me into a person who experienced death threats and then became a political refugee in the United States of America, the savior of the universe. So I grew up a proud American poet, immigrant person, carrying all this weight of a history that I couldn't completely understand or speak of freely because I was a child and then a teenager and then an adult and mostly just a poet who wanted to connect. But I kept writing, and throughout my life I've been traveling because of poetry and publishing books and meeting these communities that we are all around and trying to somehow, after a while, learning that we can connect, or that we share the similar pains, the similar struggles, similar stories. And that's why Red Door magazine was born, which is, I left some stickers in there if you guys want to take them with. It's a free online magazine, and it's a poetry magazine. It's also an arts magazine. And along the way, I've also done a few poetry projects and other art projects, mainly just trying to see how I can give back to our communities and to poetry what I've received, which is an actual existence as someone with many homes. So a moving cocoon, right? And the lottery, I'll tell you more about it, but I guess it'll tell you also more of myself. So this is why I chose to start with it. I'll read a bit of it and then continue the story of this funky adventure that I've gotten myself into. This one is called The House. It is only one, with gravel floors that creak when someone tries to escape. It has an explosion of stars instead of a ceiling, On the wall, myths and legends, harp songs, hallucinating snakes, but its doors only open when something must be kept between its pits. Something in the house, moribund, is exploding and staining everything with blood and lead. Mum says, don't look, don't talk, don't breathe. There are arms and feet and screams scattered all over the living room. Apocalyptic visions for breakfast, lunch, and dinner are daily bread. As if infected by a fatal disease, the house begins to wither, to shrink, convulse. It collapses, crumbles, sparkles, crashes down. And inside the house, everyone follows its example. They cross themselves, become violent, bite one another, gasp, get extinguished. Negotiations only prolong the act. The news only speaks of the imminent. The house bids farewell. It is it who is abandoning, burying itself in the veins. It wants to save itself. It wants to be free. Don't blame it. It's bleeding to death. What I can tell you is that the easiest way to write a story that's been in your own pit for so long that you don't know how to pull it out is by looking for archetypes that are common, that you can relate to so that it comes out in parts. And the loteria in Latin American history is actually a tarot type of divination thing. A bunch of cards that were used back in the 20s because it wasn't allowed to gamble. So it was the way to secretly, have a little bit of fun and make riddles when the images showed up. So that's kind of the format that I used with the book Loteria. But I created my own, which is the lottery of the migrant. It's also because when I arrived from Colombia, I arrived to Miami, and in Miami you have the lotto, which is, lotto changes the lives of anyone who gets it. So it was that desperate obsession of people to win the lotto in Miami or in all of Florida, and the combination with the idea of a loteria, which is something more sacred. And the name of the book is Nocturnal Sweepstakes, but it was the Lottery Nocturnal Sweepstakes, or La Lotería Sorteo Nocturno, and they liked the combination so much that they insisted it should be mutual when publishing it, and then it kind of grew on me, so now it's a bilingual title, Lotería Nocturnal Sweepstakes. One of the cards of the traditional Lotería is the devil, because it's everywhere, right? So here goes mine. El Diablito. Animal negro de patas gruesas camina por la vereda en cámara lenta. Cuentan los borrachos que lo ven a medianoche. Dicen que tiene los ojos rojos y su cuerpo es traslúcido. Nuestra casa en sus tripas, y el teléfono suena y el teléfono resuena. El teléfono no hace más que sonar. Alguien dentro de poco lo arrancará del cable de la pared, pero en este instante, a escondidas, levantas el auricular para escuchar al mundo externo que te han prohibido desde hace varios meses. La vida es un frágil espectáculo cuyos telones se cierran en un instante. El animal ronronea, tú cuelgas el teléfono, pero la enfermedad de la guerra ya está en tus tripas. Se devoró toda la historia. Tu inocencia huye despavorida en el humo de la noche. Black animal with thick legs walks down the sidewalk in slow motion. The drunks say they've seen it in the middle of the night. They say it has red eyes and its body is translucent. Our house, in its guts. And the phone rings and the phone rings and the phone does nothing more than ring. Someone will soon rip it out of the wall, but right now, you sneakily pick up the receiver to listen to the outside world that has been forbidden to you for several months. Life is a fragile spectacle whose curtains close in an instant. The animal purrs, You hang up the phone, but the disease of war is already in your guts. It devoured the whole story. Your innocence flees in terror on the back of the night. The airplane. The dead on the back of every passenger. Everyone with an "I'm not coming back" look on their faces. But that's not true. They do nothing but come back for the rest of their lives, between dream and dream. This is the spaceship that speeds away at the end of the movie before the planet explodes. And we are the ones assigned to save the species solely with our animal instinct. The pilot announces that because we're overbooked, we will not take off until some weight is relieved. But Mr. Pilot, what weighs is conscience? What weighs is cowardice? Thank you. What weighs is what can't be left behind. Everyone looks at one another as if looking for a culprit, and you, clinging to your glass box with your fingers of ice so that no one will find it, but everything requires sacrifices. On the runway, like scattered toys, the books, the magnolias, a jungle of hugs, the excuses, the reasons, the path of return. The award that the book received, I sent it as a manuscript to the Academy of American Poets call. It's the only award in the United States for poets who write in Spanish. And I sent it sarcastically a little bit because, yes, of course, I had to go into myself in order to write it. And I live in Denmark. I've been living in Denmark for almost a decade, which means I've been experiencing a different type of life as an immigrant, no? A second round of you're from here, but you're not precisely from here. And that's kind of what allowed me to reflect upon the stories that I had experienced before and be really angry, finally, at what I had been through and what I had heard everyone else went through and what is still happening with the division of class and, you know, the fucking racism that is still all around us and that I had to grow up with and I still have to carry on my shoulders. So it was kind of like a release so far away in freaking Scandinavia I had to go to in order to get rid of it. And of course, it's not the happiest love letter to the United States of America. But it is the country that saw me grow up and that gave me the opportunity to continue existing. I wasn't killed because of being a poet. So it's a very painful thing to write. And then it wins the award. Like I thought I was being mean, but then it turns out that that's what gave me the chance to return after a pandemic to give it a little bit of love. So it's a nice gift and, of course, an opportunity. I hope also a platform to continue doing what I'm already doing. And then to continue writing more of what I guess have buried inside, right? This one is The Voyage. Exile begins now among these clouds. You can't feel it yet, but the premonition wanders through the corridors and makes silence pollute the air. Here is the border between what you were and the new dreams that you will weave to save yourself. Here also the limits of the body, the symmetry of fatigue, the beginning of invisible lives that follow one another simultaneously on the planet of what would have been. The past is kept in bubbles where time does not pass until you return. But if you don't return, it's eradicated. You won't think of extinguishing. You will never again name the tragedy. The banishment will hang from your eyelashes like a permanent fruit, and you will bite from it when the poison begins to make tumors in your mind. Is there time for one more? Yeah. So I'll move forward a little bit through the story. The tree. There are many types of trees. The dragon tree, the weeping willow, the cocoa tree, with strong roots and thick branches, the eucalyptus. All different species that grow robustly to compete for sunlight. The white oak, the tree of heaven. Some die of old age or deforestation, or uprooted by a hurricane. Infestations and diseases vary from place to place. Our family tree has stopped growing. No one waters it. No one visits it. It no longer bears fruit. No one asks why. But we all know. Thank you. I'll read from two other books. Atemporal was the book that I wrote leaving New York and moving to Denmark. And In the Jaws of Oblivion, which is a book that was published in Puerto Rico, and it's a beautiful publishing project. It's an independent publishing project that is done with risograph and trying to represent the voices of the diaspora and, you know, minority voices that don't often get a chance to be published. So I'm really proud of the work that they're doing. If you're curious, it's called La Impresora. You can find it on Instagram and on the internet, and see the work that they're doing also all over the States, mainly right now of Puerto Rican poets, but also other places, which is why I'm a part of it. So I'll read from both. I'll start with Atemporal. With the very first poem that I wrote in Denmark. Love, if you do not understand the tongues with which I caress you, do not cut them, they will not bloom again. They come from a different piece of star, from the condemnation of the missing. Each syllable is a bird migrating south, resting on your shoulder, asking for some water. Don't hush them away. Do not erase their nests from your mouth. Afterwards, their children won't know how to return to you. You and I were not the same ghost, but we learned to reflect each other. Do not look for my origin. Do not try to translate the dialects of my people. Let them dance on your body all night. Let them get lost in your fury for a lifetime. Let them weave together with their blood the pieces of you that fell apart during the war. But please, do not consider yourself an archaeologist every time I take you into my core. And if at times it is only foolish noises calling you, only storms, sneezes, and shipwrecks, in one corner a rabid dog licking his paws and the rest just fire, what do you get from making a cage? What do you get from taming the scream? With which arrow are you trying to put out the sun? If you do not understand love the tongues with which I caress you, maybe we're the fire that's already dying. Maybe the curse of the ancestors came true. Maybe we already reached the end of the world and didn't even notice. Sometimes we write poetry because we have to be very much awake in our own reality, and sometimes the poems come to us in a dream. So this one is called Vision. I see an Amazonic river. It is boiling. In its waves, a multitude of bodies dancing. They raise fires, sing. Their boats are filled with incense and flowers. The river is red, and I look at it from the bridge. Next to me, a witch. Half of her face is that of an old woman, the other half, a child. I tell her, do you want to see how much it hurts? I ask again, do you really want to see how much it hurts? This much, I scream, pointing towards the water. The red tsunami elevates itself towards infinity. All the bodies disappear in its fangs like an explosion from the center of the earth. That's how much it hurts. It burns. It burns. I don't know if you've heard of the practice, Japanese practice of kintsukuroi, which is mending, chairs. I don't have to explain it. Perfect. You all know. It's also special when we think about it in our own souls and hearts and beings, how to put myself together. Of the internal fissures that you cannot reach with your tongue, the anguished streets where voices of invisible child still call upon us, or the extinct species that once flew around the whole house. Of those parties where drunk we once made love and madness until we fused into one burning iron giant. Of the footprints in circle, in vertigo, in flight, tracing with golden threads the paths that no longer exist. And the tallest branches reaching up, ablaze, feeding the belief. And the laughter of the girl who still brings flowers to your chest, even now that names are simply that. Of the irreparable, for example, the scar on the right wrist, the ankle that cannot stretch, lightning behind the pupil. Of the thirst, the bestial hunger, the boiling womb salivating through the corner of the lips and squeezing your legs, tremor, shame, paleness, blankets soaking with secrets. Of the first wars and all those that followed, or the first time you realized you too had a demon between your bones and you wished to chain it, to vanish it under the rocks, and you wished to punish it eternally in the farthest tower of your spirit, and you wished to weep in a corner forever, spilling your sorrow in the deepest well, spilling your veins without return, hearing your voices curse, this isn't me, not anymore, towards the place where no one could reach you. Of that which is untamable. For example, the rebellion of a rose during winter, the blood in spite of copper wires, rats playing in twos through the sewers, the cardboard instructions that were once castles, the legends of faith and reconciliation, ingenuity included. Of all of this, we do not speak in public. No, of all of this, we do not think in public. The invisible wound spreads in all directions. There is no membrane, nor warrior, nor kiss to awake us. Paleness began on the chest, and now, one by one, all cravings begin to fall. All fascinations are now made of stone, of asphalt, like your eyes, like your veins, like your laughter, like your screams, which look like water horses fleeing vertically towards the shadows. like your fingers crossing through rivers of torment and sweat. Love is a zone of landslides. I, without my fish hooks at its shore. Death penalty, emergency exit. I can drown in your vertigo, but I still cannot save us. The soul defoliating on the other side of the mirror. And what about the intermediate spaces? What about the narrow streets where sanity never entered? The broken bulbs, the cobwebs. What of the caves where we shed our first skins? The white light, the startlement, the legend. To clarify, the regions we left uninhabited still await us. To clarify, the regions we left uninhabited still await us. To clarify, las regiones que dejamos sin habitar aún nos esperan. Aún nos esperan. Aún nos esperan. Thank you.
It's good to be here. It is. It's good to be here. I was nearly going to be in LA. Genuinely, I wiggled things round. I'm going on Monday instead. So I'm really happy to be here. So I am. You never know where poetry will take you. And I'm grateful to Dominic for reaching out. And it's just really great to hear new poets. Well, I'd heard you on the radio. I have a link with the Welsh Embassy and the Scottish Embassy and British Council. I sometimes bring poets from other places around, and they were telling me about you, so I was listening to them, listened to you. But it's just great. Yeah, it's just good to be here. Just wanted to remind myself of that. And I'm going to say I had a very brief chat with Trudy outside there and her daughter. So I did, and this is a poem I'll say for you. It's called The Gardener. It's a poem I wrote for my mother, and Hanan said to me, "Where do I go to?" As I was walking by. What do you mean by that, Hanan? What are you getting at there? So where I'm going to attempt to go to, don't always go there, but I'm going to try and go to the Isle of Man right now, because that's where my mother is today. So I have touchstones or touch points, whatever, on myself or in the poems that I attempt to go to. It doesn't always work out that way, you know. But I might go to the Isle of Man for a moment here with this poem called The Gardener. So because of this. She turned to me and said, "Do you think I'm happy?" And I heard a question I didn't want to hear. I knew the answer. I have listened to the cry, but to face it, it made me uneasy. But I felt the bravery. I felt the realness in the moment, so I answered, you see. She's a gardener who has great plans but works with what she's got. She loves creation, sees beauty and wants to share it with you, understands the cruelty of nature and yet it fills her with wonder. Have you tried her rhubarb fresh from Granny's garden? You should. Maybe there are prettier roses, but she'd rather be a cooking apple, or better yet, a gooseberry. Her hands are worn, the flesh loosened by age. She held my hand in church today for the first time in too long. Her eyes are still young, still life to be lived. This Joe Bangles is not condemned when there is breath left, still seeking that happiness. God love her. People before prophet, she says. A modern-day Guevara or Connolly as a nation lets her down, working 34 years in a job, draining away her very essence for what? To feed me, educate me, clothe me, but not stopping there. I remember she took Mrs. Prendergast in her Buttons when we couldn't afford to go to Butlins. Caravanning around with the takeaway Chinese, the Isle of Man, the cinema, jazz after church every Sunday, as we did today, 28 years on. taught me to notice the sunset, her bondage, a sick child and a broken marriage, all this, and I don't know how to speak to her. I always want to hug her, and I don't know how. So a veiled kiss laced with courtesy will do. She's been learning how to stop living inside her own head, gets up, goes out, half the battle. No panic attacks for a while, still manic but calmer now, still pretending, still xenophobic, homophobic, not meaning to be. Lost marbles down gutters like dreams. The anger, it's fresher though. Built up over years of false dawns and mistrust, reduced expectations, frustrations, wants contentment now. Quiet. Yes. Quiet. Peace. Or perhaps bird song in her garden where she will grow apples, pears, spuds, raspberries, strawberries and gooseberries, watch them bloom again and return to the soil, but not before she has lived a life deserving. My mother told me today she pretends to be happy. What do you say to that? Let's watch her flower now, I say, and bring her some water. It's funny, the bird song got me there, so it did. Just heard it. It felt like she was sort of saying hello or something to me. I'll do one more and I'll shag off. So thanks again. I'm actually back in Wales for the Hay Festival, la-di-da, on the 26th, I think. So if you're around, I'm doing an hour and a half chat, saying poems there. Be lovely to see people there. Be lovely to come back to Wales again. I just did a big tour, 10 events in 19 days around this island, which has been remarkable. Lovely kindness from people, and loads of affection for other poets and people that are doing things, and people like Dominic that are community builders and doing it for the right reasons. Met so many people like that around this island. And I also have to say, I'm really fucking sorry for this. Yous are fucked. I don't say that with any triumphalism as an Irish man. It's funny seeing how you shot yourselves in the foot to a certain extent, but like it is, you know, like. But then I don't have any statistics, but I've seen this island, all around this island. I've been to places I've never been to before. It's not looking good. There's poverty in Ireland, not like it is over here. It's really sad. I hope you sort it out. I really do hope, because I love coming over. So many beautiful people. I hope you sort it out. This is a poem I wrote from where I'm from, Dublin, which is fucking amazing and full of shit. So that's why I think I can say it here, or outside of Dublin. But yeah, thank you, Dominic. Keep on coming back to these things, create your own stuff. I do have some merch to always be closing, you know. I have poetry pamphlets and CDs, and actually I have some posters from my tour from last year that are just left over, so you can have them for free. But if you'd like to buy a CD or a pamphlet, that'd be great. It would help the petrol home. And yeah, I have social media stuff as well. If you want to find me, my website's stephenjamesmith.com. But this is probably, this poem changed my life. A few poems have changed my life in different ways. The last one changed my life when I shared it with my mum, and she gave me permission to share with others. I wouldn't have done that otherwise. And it helped our relationship. We still argue all the bloody time, unfortunately. But you're lucky. We're probably just too similar, actually, is the reality of it. But this poem kind of got me a lot of attention, which I didn't really know how to deal with. It's called Dublin You Are, and thanks again. I'm looking forward to hearing you now in a sec. Right. Dublin. You are grey brick upon brick full of tarmac and hipster pricks, just face it. All other places pale in comparison. You are more than some former Saxon garrison Dublin. Your warmth came too late for John Corrie Dublin. Are you even sorry Dublin? You're divided by more than the Liffey. You said yes to equality, it's about blooming time. Yet Dublin, you always proclaimed to cherish all Dublin. Your panties are on Capel Street, compromising any papal feats. Dublin, Jedward, awkward. Dublin. You're more than a settlement on the Poddle, but Dublin, what's the crack with coddle? It's shite. Why don't you just admit it, Dublin? You brought back Sam again. But when did you go from the clash to the ash to exchanging gold for cash? Dublin, Dublin, Oblina, Ballia Ahaclia, and 180 other tongues your citizens are using to name you, so Cade me to fault you to all. Dublin, where the power is held by too few in the Dáil. Dublin, when will you revolt again? 1988 wasn't your true millennium, despite the 50p's and milk bottles. Dublin, you're mine, but I'm happy to share you, Dublin. From RTE, TCD, UCD, U2, SIP2, IFSC, and acrimonious Temple Bar STDs, ODs, 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 and OMGs. No longer the second city. Yet you play second fiddle to Google and Guinness to Facebook and on social twits. Dublin, look at yourself. Your tower blocks and tenements are an excuse for a solution. Dublin, come here till I tell you be more than rapid dirt birds and banjacks bowsies. An alright story, but yeah, sure, it's all good. Jay's that scald you. Why go ball you? McSawyer and the lawyer. Dublin, I cry for you, Dublin. You're a tough bastard. Yet you're full of the softness of all the people on your streets. Margaret Dunn dancing on O'Connell Street, the Dice Man Tom McGinty miming on Grattan Street, Pat Inglesby with his poems, Westmoreland Street and your Mollies, Malone, Ivers and Bloom, the Daily Sally Sandy Mountain, the Gospel of Kelly, Drew, McKenna and Sheen, the Borstal boys like Brendan Bean, the Lance Joyce and Evelyn looking out to sea. Snow falling slowly on the dead in Glass, Nevin, Glenn and Marquette, the one strolling to Christy Brown, willfully controlling a foot to paint pictures and poems to your heroines. Brenda Fricker, the city's mother, and Maureen O'Hara and enchanting other Dublin, you are boom and bust, running wild and swift. Dublin, can I trust you? Dublin, your true blue was Harry Clark's cobalt. Dublin, from a thin Lizzie Dicey Riley to a floozy in a jacuzzi, God-fearing. Dublin, shooting down Veronica Gearan. Dublin, your bang bang, 40 coats, Zosimus, a blind street poet. Dublin, you were all of us, and all who are yet to come. So let's go to the gravedigs and have a pint. Dublin, remember Stardust and all your waltzing lovers. Big Jim's arms are outstretched, tourism people, yet are we under the thumb again. Dublin, your GPO columns are scarred from the crackle of gunshots. Your CCTV will never yield your essence like the shots of Arthur Field's Man on Bridge. You are the Poolbeg Towers and the poor showers begging on Bachelor's Walk. Dublin, you're all talk, yet you have my attention. From Robbie Keane to Paul and me and Dublin's calling, ooh, ah, Paul McGrath, while some say up the Ra. Dublin, bridging gaps with Joyce and Beckett and finally to Rosie Hackett. Dublin, Paddy Finnegan was forced to sell the big issue on your streets while Daffodil Mulligan was played the Bowron beats. Dublin, you say the lish. Dublin, you're full of the Polish and Brazilian speaking Portuguese, and now the Chinese have turned Parnell Street into Chinatown. Dublin, don't let them down. Dublin, don't forget. No blacks, no dogs, no Irish. Dublin, perish the thought of you being racist. Dublin, Cullen has fled the GPO as Henry Vermont. Dublin, your bay embraces, despite the Sellafield Sea, your mountains frame all your natural beauty. Dublin, the whale and banshee stricken with TB. Dublin, you're European, but you could be Craggy Island in the skies. Gabriel Conroy is heading west because of an epiphany. Just saying, Dublin, you only painted your post boxes green. Is the Abbey doing all you dreamed? Dublin, you're notorious for clampers, senators and seagulls, to Celtic tigers and septic tanks, to singing high kings and rampaging Vikings. Dublin, come here. Take me for a Teddy's and a romantic stroll in with a pier. Dublin, you're a dancing place. A sprawling space of villages and many faces on the edge of an island that's been eroded by the Atlantic, battling with being romanticised. Dublin, are you dynamic? Struggling with identity, changing for the better, changing for us. Don't be scared to change. Don't be scared. We're with you, always. My friend, my home, mentioned 50 times in this poem. We live in you, with you, my city, my Cree. I love you. Most of the time you see Dublin. you are me.
First off, I just want to thank you all. Like, it's just been such a lovely, like, warm sense, like, throughout the evening. And thank you to my fellow poets. Like, I'm so glad that I got to see you perform in real life. And thank you, Dominic. Thank you so much for inviting me. Okay. So, as you may or may not know, I'm Muslim. But I'm a really crap Muslim. And a lot of the sort of issues, I think, anyone who follows a faith, none of them are perfect. And I sort of toil with the understanding of some of the interpretations towards women in my faith. And so I wrote this piece about the Arabian, when it was Arabia, the tradition of burying girls because they would prefer to have boys. We bury girls. My people used to bury girls, smothering guilty babies with sand and dust, handful after handful. It wasn't until a man, a soft man, came down from the mountain, pleading for his wife to cover him, that they stopped burying their girls. The land still shivers, heart-sickly, reliving the shitty, shameful murder. Read, said the angel, hoping a single word would reveal the world. But nowadays, we bury girls with words. Thank you. And so I wrote that piece, and I remember reading it and someone coming up to me and saying, yeah, it's totally barbaric how they treat women over there, like meaning, over there in the Middle East. And I just thought it's such an interesting perspective to have, that we're all right here, but over there, they're fucked. And soon after I had this interaction, the overturning of Roe versus Wade happened. And that was a moment in which a lot of, Western women were like, oh, fuck, it's not over there, it's here. And so I wrote this piece called Newer Colossus. I didn't know this, but on the base of the Statue of Liberty, there's a poem called The New Colossus. And I decided to write it in the form of a golden shovel, if you care, if you don't care. But one of my favourite poets is an American poet called Terence Hayes, and he invented this form called the golden shovel, where you take a phrase and then your last word on each line is the phrase. And so as a bit of a fuck you to, Western feminists who think that, it's only in the Middle East that shit happens, I took a quote from Noel Saadawi, who's like this amazing, she was like the Simone de Beauvoir of the Arab world, basically. And her quote is, I speak the truth, and the truth is savage and dangerous. The girl in orange is burning bright. I guess she's about 19. I hear her speak, her mouth joyfully spilling out the signature curved R's of French. There's truth in her laughter. Sparks glitter from her hands and hips. She is moving music. She's dancing with the sun. Her glowing arms pierce the sky. There's truth in her girl-shaped gift of bursting light. Is she strong enough to stop them squashing her savage brightness? Look closely at her glowing eyes and searing smile. See the world there, dangerous and gorgeous, yearning to breathe free. Thank you. So tonight I feel like we've been on a bit of a world tour. We've heard of places, Kerry, we've heard of Miami, we've heard of Colombia, we've heard of Iraq. So I feel it fitting to end a poem called Home. It's called Home because I'm shit at titles. So, but the Eurovision cannot be held in Ukraine, and so it's being held in Liverpool. And so the Eurovision commissioned this piece to talk about home and how it's not always the space we expect it to be. Home is a loving burn, all white-hot heat. The close comfort indents itself on our skin, then flares, siren of forced escape, and fingers snatch for family photos, clasping close Nan's homemade blanket. Our clothes begin to cling, singed with Dad's aftershave, Mum's Sunday dinner. That white, hot heat recedes. Embers Morse code the way back, and our fingers tap in time as we dream. The truth is, home is a star. We wait, hoping the light will reach us. Thank you.